How have things changed over the past couple of years? Like, what are you doing today that's unique or different? Or what were some discoveries? I don't know, whether it be the markets you're working in, or it's just like, hey, you know what? There's a better way. I'm going to try this other way and do it that way now and see how that works.
When I got started, it was awesome. Like I said, 150 tax delinquent letters to a $9,000 deal, right? $9,000 net deal. Yeah, maybe not quite how the business was, but I do remember I could send out about 1,100 blind offers at probably 25 cents on the dollar. And I would get a deal or two from those, pretty frequently.
What market? Florida?
Florida, really good. I would buy at 5, 6, 7 grand and sell at 25 to 35 grand in really good growing secondary markets in around Orlando was kind of where I got started and got some early success and stuff. But that stopped probably later 2021. I don't want to say stopped. Sorry, it slowed down. The numbers changed. Right, it took more volume to get there. I was doing all infill lots essentially. Right, despite my really big success being in some rural land for whatever reason, infill lots were just the easiest. The comps were readily available. So easy to have security. Right, to go forth and actually know that you have the information to close the deal, make your return, whatever. You have to look at a couple of different elements. Number one, a lot of wholesalers that were in house wholesaling, some education people that came in and were teaching wholesaling, right, basically flooded the infill lot space. And what that did, especially in markets like Florida, where, so many people were moving from the East Coast with the big push from COVID, right? DC, Boston, Maryland, New York, they like staying on their coast. So they all came down to Florida. So you have this insane demand, right? So lots were selling like hotcakes down there, which is great, except when people are making money, it's hard to keep it a secret. Okay, and so these wholesalers were coming in and they were okay making $5,000 on an assignment because they basically didn't have to put any capital down. And they already had a lot of systems in place from when they were house wholesaling. So, and again, I'm not saying competition makes it so there's no opportunity, but it definitely changed the numbers on how much marketing to deal that it took. So I would see markets where I was mailing and getting good deals, and no joke, I mean, in like a 3 to 6 month span, it was like, oh, this is, all the feedback I'm getting is I just got an offer for 4 times what you're offering, right? On a deal that I would buy at 7 and sell at 25, 30. All of a sudden they're getting offers for 20. And I'm like, what? Who's making money on that, right? And it's like, oh, well, they've got a buyer's list. They're disposing it for, $5,000. They're basically not having to float capital to put into the deal. They're not spending as much on marketing because maybe they're doing cheaper means of marketing, what have you. But it's been interesting watching that shift in terms of competition. Sorry, I like to set with a bunch of assumptions before I start talking about how I've changed my strategy. So this might be long-winded here. The second thing I'll say is the change in interest rates have definitely affected infill lots probably more than any other class of land, I think. I could be wrong here, and if anybody else, wants to chime in, please message me, comment on this, whatever. I'd love to hear other people's feedback and what other people are seeing. But I had contracts with really good builders, actually, that I signed in April. Interest rates started going up. We were supposed to close in June. They called me the day before closing and said, we need a $4,000 price reduction or we're going to walk. I'm like, what? Guys, this is not a good integrity play on your part. I mean, this is really slimy, but there's, what do? I either take their escrow money and go remarket the deal, but maybe I needed the cash. And so let's just go ahead and close it, or I don't want to deal with it, whatever, right? There's timelines you've got to be aware of. But when you think about who is buying this and why they're buying it, right? And I think that's a really important thing everybody should pay attention to as they're thinking about the type of land they're marketing to. Okay, with an infill lot, you're either going directly to a retail buyer who's going to put a home on it, or you're going to a builder who's going to build it, rent it, or build it and sell it to somebody who's going to live in it, right? And so regardless of where this is going, more often than not, somebody who's going to get a mortgage, which means payments are going to go up, right? We've also obviously, unless you've been living under a rock, supply chain has been an issue. So materials have gone up. Labor has gone up over the past 18 months, right? So it's this perfect storm that sucks for builders. Like, I would hate to be a home builder right now because your costs are going up. Land has also gone up. And then all of a sudden, the interest rate's going up. Now your consumers can't afford to pay as much for your homes. And so I would say that's probably the most affected type of land in the land niche. Now, in terms of what I'm doing is I'm shifting into more rural. I'm purchasing from another investor a lot in Colorado, so 40-acre Desert Square. When you think about the buyer pool of that, it's got not great road access, but it has an easement, okay? So who's going out there? Somebody that wants a four-wheeler, a camper, RV, whatever, camping, shooting, whatever you want to do, okay? Your buyer pool is somebody that probably has the cash because either you're offering owner financing or you're selling it cash and there's enough of a buyer pool that's going to pay cash for it because your sales price is maybe that $25,000 to $35,000, and there's enough people that want that product that had the cash before interest rates went up and have the cash after interest rates went up, right? Because they're buying it cash, and so the payments don't change. And so you're somewhat insulated from that buyer pool under the assumption their income doesn't change, right? So as long as this is somebody that didn't lose a job, I hope they weren't a loan officer at Chase, for example, because I think a couple thousand of those guys just got laid off. But we're only really seeing, I don't know, this could turn into a very deep economic discussion very quickly, so I want to be careful. But I would say going more rural in markets where your buyer pool is less affected is one thing you can do. Another strategy is actually the forcing appreciation strategies, right? You guys have had Travis King, Mike Marshall on here. I'm working on my first subdivision project. I actually just brought in a partner who's going to be seeking out specific subdivision projects, looking at these at an individual level to see, hey, in this state, here are the exceptions. What can we target? Let's look at a county. Here are the 600 plots that we could look at. Let's go individually target these people.